Okay, so what I'm going to do now is show you how I actually create my wood effect for my Kruleboyz. So what I did is I did a 3 simple colour approach to this. So I started off with Wildwood contrast. I watered down some Black Legion contrast, and then I dry over some Terminus stone to create this effect of like a little bit of depth and tone. So I'm trying to keep my painting of these Kruleboyz quite simple because I'm going to have a lot to paint as my Stormbringers come in. So simple video on how to do the wood. Now, why have I got a Death Corpse of Cry guy here? Okay, so the reason I want to show you this guy, is because I did actually use Wildwood contrast on him, and I used it on his helmet to create that bronze effect. You see, what happens with contrast paints is frequently when you put them over greys, they can actually create a more metallic effect, which, if you don't want a metal, that can be, not ideal. So I just thought I'll show you and warn you that when you're putting contrasts over grey, there's a risk of actually getting a bronze effect, which is great if you want that effect, but obviously if you don't want that effect, then it's not gonna, you're not gonna be happy. There's no other way to put it. So on this grey, I've found that my Wildwood will not make a bronze. So let me just show you here. Now, I'm just using one of my bog standard brushes for this. Again, I'm getting my Wildwood. I'm wetting it a bit, but not too much. And I'm just going to run it over the top. Okay, and there we go. That's a nice simple Wildwood contrast over this grey. And as you can see, I haven't ended up with the metallic effect, which is good. I didn't want a metallic effect this time. If I wanted a metallic effect, I'd have gone a lighter grey. Okay, I'm going to have to let that dry for a bit now because it is a very wet paint. Okay, so now I've given that Wildwood contrast a little bit of time to dry, I'm going to head over to the Black Legion contrast. So this is what I'm going to use to get some nice deep shading. Now, I was actually considering using null oil for this, but then I started thinking about, I actually wanted a slightly darker shadow than null oil was going to give me. Again, notice that because I've watered it down, it's just rolling over everything, and that's exactly what I want it to do. I want it to basically get right into all the recesses, so I can still see the Wildwood contrast, basically, so I've got a wooden feeling, but the black is really pushing a deep shadow on this. Okay, and then that's nice and simple. Oh, got a bit too much dropped into there. I'll just try and fish that out. But it does create a good shadow around the hand anyway. And, you know, that's nice and simple. I'm going to just wait for it now to dry up a bit. Right, so now it's time to get the dry brushing finished on this. So I've made my dry brush a little bit wet, partly because, particularly with Terminus stone, obviously it's a very dry, powdery, you see. And the reason behind that is because it is a dry brushing thing, you know. So the idea is that it's like a kind of very close to a pigment in some cases. Anyway, so as always, I'm just gonna get a bit off that. So I'm really just trying to get this brush dry now, but then work it in. Okay, that feels ready now to start. And I'm just gonna basically, I'm just going to go over this. Get a nice light tone. Probably a bit more than that. It's not quite giving me the brightness that I want on the outer edges. Hopefully you can see. I mean, it's probably not easily or clear because, you know, obviously I'm using a phone screen and I wish I could actually get a better camera than this. But there we go. So 3 simple stages to get a sort of like a bright wood but with a very dark tone. It's just a matter getting the very dark shadow in, dry brushing the light into it. Obviously I'm not trying to put too much in the shadow there because that doesn't quite work, but enough so that it's not just all black. Okay, and that will give me a nice sort of light and dark undertone to this weapon.